Welcome back. My name is Johan van die Kerk, and we are discussing the ultimate business formula. As I have told you before, I have had the privilege of helping hundreds of different business owners build their businesses over the last 25 years. I've also built a number of my own businesses in different countries, in different continents around the world. And through this process, I've been able to identify the secret to success. I've said it once, I'll say it again. Hey, all businesses are the same. You just need to know how this formula works. And regardless of service or product, as long as you apply this formula, you are almost guaranteed success. So today we're going to delve into the second part of this formula. We discussed in the last video the foundation. I've said it, I'm a visual guy. I use this visual of building a house. So now that we've built the foundation, how do we continue building? How do we build the walls, the roof? How do we finish the house? And that's what we're going to be discussing in this video today. However, remember, if this is valuable for you, please do not forget to like, subscribe, and click the notification bell below so that you don't miss any more of this valuable content. It's all in the description below. You'll also find a link to our newsletter. If you want to learn a little bit more, you can sign up there as well, and you'll get even more valuable content for free. Let's get straight into it. Once we've built this foundation, like I said, next step, how do we go from startup to small business? How do we start up and how do we grow into a small business? This is the next phase before ultimately growing into the third phase, which is building yourself into a medium-sized business. Startup phase, what is there important? What are the elements of this formula in the startup phase? In this case, we start by looking at a business model. Hey, you have to understand where you earn your money. I've seen it so often with small businesses. It's that they do not understand truly what they are selling. They don't know how to communicate it to the client. In essence, they don't know where they are adding value. And I think that term is one of the most important terms here in our video today, is adding value. You need to understand where you add the value to the client. You get paid where you add value. And I've seen so often as well, like I say, the guys, everybody thinks they're adding value, and before you know it, there's a chain of people. I once had a scenario where somebody came to me with a great business deal. He came to me, there was so much money to be made, sounded interesting, I engaged with the guy. And when I started engaging with him, his eyes lit up. Obviously, he had a lead. And then suddenly there was a second guy behind him that he introduced me to because he was just a middleman. And when I started speaking to that guy, he introduced me to the next guy, another middleman. And before you know it, there were so many people in this chain that there wasn't enough money to be made. Everybody wanted to earn a little bit of commission. Everybody thought that they were a broker in this deal. It doesn't work. Now, not all businesses are like that. But even in small businesses, hey, what are you selling? If you are a restaurant, what are you truly selling? Are you selling food? Are you selling sustenance? Or are you selling an experience? And where you add the value is where you get paid. If you simply add food, if it's simply a convenience thing, if you think about the big fast food chains in the world, hey, what are they selling? They're selling consistent convenience. That's what they're selling. Consistency and convenience. Whether you buy a burger in America or Korea or in Australia, it doesn't matter, it always tastes the same. Consistency and the convenience of fast, easy, cheap food. So what are they selling? Not an experience. They're selling sustenance and consistency. However, if you go to a high-end Michelin a restaurant, what are they selling? They are selling an experience. And for that, they get to charge you 10 times the price of an average restaurant because the experience is where it's at. And this is what you have to understand. You need to understand, in order to determine your business model, you need to understand where you add value in this chain. And I know a lot of people say, business models, it's old-fashioned. The business model is simply for you. It's not for the bank. It's not to get a loan. It's simply so that you understand how your business works, what model works, and where you truly add the value. Because when you understand the value that you add, you can quantify it, and then you will know what to charge, which is another separate topic where I've had so many people that don't know what is fair to charge in the industry that they are in. Once you have that, the next step is we have to look at who are you going to sell to? Who's your target market? Who needs this? There's this little story that I like to tell about trombone oil. Apparently, trombone oil is one of the most expensive fluids on earth. It costs crazy amounts of money. However, you have to ask yourself, profit margins, how much? In this case, massive profit margins. Profit margins are well above 90%. So it sounds like a great business. 90% profit margins. Hey, where do you get that? Sounds all good. But the interesting part is, how big is the market for trombone oil? And it's only a couple of quarts a year worldwide. A trombone doesn't need a lot of oil. Very specialized oil doesn't need a lot of oil. Very expensive, high profit margins, but there isn't a very big market for it. And when you delve further into it, it's a very complicated process that goes before, and it is actually just a waste product from something else that they then refine a little bit more. But that first process in terms of refining it, that's very capital intensive. So it doesn't make sense. And so the target market, you have to determine the target market. You have to see where you're going with this. You have to understand who you are talking to, and make sure that they actually need what you are selling, that you are addressing the problems. Once we've done those two, next step, of course, is you have to start building trust. I've said in the previous videos as well, trust building is actually a science. We do business with people. We do not do business with businesses. We do not do business with companies or products. We do business with people. And so it's very important that you understand how do you build trust? Because when you build trust, people will trust you to deliver what you are selling. People will start buying. I always like to use the example of electronic products. I'm not going to use any names today. I'm not plugging anybody specifically. But hey, do you think that you do business with Apple? No, you don't. You do business with Steve Jobs, you do business with Tim Cook, you like the faces. The same with Tesla. Who's Tesla? Everybody knows Elon Musk. That face is there. There's a lot of companies in second, third, fourth, fifth places. But hey, if you want to be a winner, you need to understand, you need to build trust. How do you build that trust? Another one that I'm a very, very big fan of, that's determining early, is decide how you make decisions. Decisions is also one of those things that there's actually an interesting science behind it. We just think decisions, but decisions has to do with energy again. And we as human beings have limited energy. We wake up, we have limited energy. We have limited energy to do what we need to do throughout the day. Some of us have a bit more, some of us have a bit less. But in the end, everything that we do takes energy. And so if you have to figure out in the morning, for example, waking up, and you have to say to yourself, oh, what am I doing? Am I getting up? Am I snoozing? What am I doing? All of those are decisions. That takes energy. And if you in your business already know what your purpose is, you have your vision and you have everything else, and you know that you make decisions in your business so that the result comes out at the other side. I do not make decisions that do not move my business forward. What are those decisions? You have to be very, very clear about it. And I like creating a decision tree. Later on in this video series, we'll be going more in depth into these things. What does it mean? What is a decision tree? How does it look like? But it's important to decide that up front because it allows you to be much more efficient. In the end, the net result of success is how many decisions can you make correctly in a day. That will determine your success at the end of the day, and your success at the end of the day will determine your success at the end of the week. It compiles, and at the end of the year, you'll see the growth in your business if you know how you make decisions and what is the best way to make decisions in your business. The one thing that we still have to talk about in this specific section, the walls of the small business, as I talked about in the previous video, then these are the walls. It's the actual structure of the business. Now, again, this is very dependent on where you live in the world and what kind of structures are out there, what makes sense. I'm a lawyer by training originally, and I am one of those lawyers that say, hey, of course, you have to protect yourself. You have to make sure that you are covered. But in some countries, it is very, very expensive to set up limited liability companies. In Germany, for example, I just started a company, again, a limited liability company in Germany called a GmbH. They cost you about 25,000 euros to set up, so almost $30,000 US dollars to set up a company. So that's not in everybody's ability to do that. But depending on what you do and what kind of risk it carries, you have to figure out what is the correct structure to do this. And sometimes it's good to just get going and get the sales going. I'm a big fan of getting the sales going, but you have to look at what structure makes sense in your country. So from that perspective, that's the last thing we look at this. The wall part, while we're building the walls of the house, is the business setup itself, what kind of legal structure you should be looking at. We'll also be delving a little bit more into that later in the series. Now that we've built the walls of this house, and we've discussed all of the elements that make up the bricks of these walls, once you get to the top of the walls, what's next? We have to start securing the property. We have to build a roof. We want to be protected from rain, hail, storms. That's what we need to do next. Before we can start the finishes inside the house, we have to build the roof. And that roof, is cash flow. Once you've determined all of these things, we have to look at what does your cash flow look like. And obviously the lifeline of any business, blood of a business, is your cash flow and consistent cash flow. One of the biggest problems in small businesses is that cash flow is not consistent. I'm sure all of you have suffered. I've suffered from this over the years, is that the cash flow is inconsistent. Hey, a client pays here, a client pays there, but my pipeline is not really full. We need to get the cash flowing, and we need to get the cash flowing consistently. How do we start doing this? We have a couple of different elements that we have to look at. In this case, the elements of this formula, the roof, the tiles as such, is we start by looking at an initial marketing strategy. Your marketing strategy will develop as you grow. You start with a smaller one, but as you grow, it becomes more complex. You add more channels, you add more feeds, you add more target markets. But in the beginning, you have to be very, very focused. One of the keys is being focused. The marketing strategy, how do you get your product to your clientele? If I can use the example of the restaurant I used earlier, listen, if you are a fast food joint and you want to sell a burger for $1,000 US, guess what? It's not going to happen. Well, how do you're not selling that to the normal market. You have to take a different approach. How do you find the route to your target market? We'll be discussing that again later in the video a little bit. Again, I'm reminding you, remember to click below, to like this video, to subscribe, and to click the notification bell so that you don't miss any of the future videos in the series. So in the future, we'll go more in depth into how we build these marketing strategies. In the beginning, very, very focused so that we could seriously get your cash flow going. There is no sense in adding additional products and services until you've got one down well, where you know you're speaking to your target audience and they are actually buying. We'll also look at how AI can help you improve this process. How can you be more efficient at it? AI is making such an impact on the world. We have to grow it. We have to work with it. If you are not using AI, you are going to be left behind very, very quickly. AI is not something that's here to replace jobs, not at the moment at least. AI is something that makes you much, much more efficient. Part of your marketing strategy is also looking at your elevator pitch. I'm sure all of you have heard this. What is your elevator pitch? Some people believe in it, some don't. But in essence, the elevator pitch is just knowing so well what you sell that at the drop of a hat, you can tell people what you do within 30 seconds or less. I'm not talking about standing in front of a room of people in a boardroom and pitching your business. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about you're standing at a barbecue, you are talking to somebody new, you met somebody at a wedding, it doesn't matter, but what do? You need to be able to clarify what you do, where you add value within 30 seconds or less so that you can pique their interest or you can filter them out. Another one is also the marketing strategy we spoke about, but what about the sales strategy? I talked about in the previous video, what's the difference between marketing and sales? We have to understand that, but you have to have a sales strategy. Once you have acquired the lead, how are you selling this person? What does this look like? What is the process of going through this? How do you lead them down this road of purchasing? The process flow is so important. And again, as a visual person, I believe you should have each of these elements mapped out so that you understand how are you helping your client understand the value that you add so that they can eventually get to the point where they say, you are the person for me. I want to buy from you. Acquisition is part of the strategy. How do you acquire? I'm one of the ones that believe in first start with lower hanging fruit, but there's a bunch of strategies that you look at. Well, how do you acquire? Where do you go? Part of the business model that I spoke about earlier, and at this point in time, is once you start having sales, you have to break this down into your unit level economics. Unit level economics is bringing everything that you sell down to the most basic level so that you completely understand the value that you add, what that value costs, what you sell it for. Every little element you need to understand down to the cent. When you know that, then it's very easy to copy and paste because you know exactly that model makes so much money. This product, this service is so profitable. And once it is very clear, everything is mapped out, everything is understood, it's literally copy and paste and starting to scale your business and growing your business from there. We also have to look at the remuneration model and the sales planning. Two more elements in this, in building the roof and securing this home. Sales planning, I see it so often. Sales is, hey, whoever I can talk to. But you have to plan your sales. You literally have to have a plan. How do you go about? How do you see clients? Who's approaching them? Is it you? Is it your salespeople? The sales plan, very important as well. All of these elements, I know I'm saying this a lot, everything's important, but it is so true. Because if you miss any of these elements, it's like leaving a brick out of a wall. Hey, it might not make the house fall down, but the rain might come in, or the rodents, and it might start chewing your house up from inside. These things all are important, all have to be fed into the system. If you do all of this diligently and properly, you will have a successful business. And if you already run a business, I want to encourage you, hey, figure out where the holes are and start plugging them with this checklist. I've spoken about it before. I've created this checklist of this formula. What is in the formula? It's all in there. Remember, you can click below and you can get a free copy of this checklist to see if you've got every single element in your business. And if not, don't worry. We'll help you fix that in this video series over the next coming weeks and months. And remember to like, subscribe, and click the notification bell below to make sure that you don't miss any of this very valuable content as we continue the series.